the main challenge, and it's not specific to NIS2, it's more specific to any cybersecurity project. It's to convince the customer and sometimes the management of the customer that doing NIS2 will bring value to the business.
Welcome to Secure and Simple podcast. In this podcast, we demystify cybersecurity governance, compliance with various standards and regulations, and other topics that are of interest for consultants, CISOs, and other cybersecurity professionals. Hello, I'm Dejan Kosutic, the CEO at Advisera and the host of Secure and Simple podcast. Today my guest is Philippe Cornette. He's an interim CISO and the founding partner at DigiSôter, a consultancy company focused on cybersecurity, IT, and risk management. He works with various frameworks, including ISO 27001, GDPR, DORA, NIST cybersecurity framework, CMMC, and others. But in this interview today, we will focus on what kind of an impact NIS2 will have on companies and on consultancies. So, in today's podcast, you'll learn about opportunities with NIS2 and other cybersecurity frameworks, but also how to run a successful consultancy. Welcome to the show, Philippe.
Welcome.
Good to have you here. So, how did you actually become a consultant? What triggered you actually to start working as a consultant?
It's a long story because first I worked during 22 years as an employee. And after more or less 20 years, I started to think about creating my own company. It took me a while before I decided to do the big jump because I worked for a nice company. My last job was at ING, where I was director. And so also my family was not, they were supporting the idea, but they were a little bit stressed by the fact that I will change my status. And then one day I decided to do the big jump. I wanted to use my experience of 22 years working with smaller company. My first customer was a very large company, so I did not manage to start immediately to work for a smaller company. And okay, I learned also a lot during the first few years as a consultant because it's quite different than a normal employee. And I wanted to focus more on bringing value, less bureaucracy, less administration, really to be every day in more hands-on with customer. And that's why I decided to move to the consultancy job.
Okay. Are you still happy with this decision or did you regret it?
I regret not to have started before.
Oh.
No, I'm really happy. There are a few customers that proposed me to become again an employee when I did a mission in their company, but I always say, no, sorry. I prefer to stay a consultant and then to grow my company with other consultants. And that's I've never regretted to move to that status.
Great. It's a great story. Yeah, thank you. Okay, on LinkedIn, I noticed that you've said that you are Chief Troubleshoot Officer. So what does this exactly mean?
Right. I did... I'm an engineer. I study engineering in computer science. And I always say that I remember only two things about my study because it's a long time ago. I learned to learn. That's the first thing. Because when you work in IT and in cybersecurity, you cannot stop to learn. You continuously need to learn new things. And the second thing that I learned during my study is to resolve problems. And that's really what drives me also. It's, to have challenge, to say, okay, yeah, there is a business problem here. What can I do to help my customer today? Before it was to help my employers. And so I like to work on problem. I don't like to have everyday repetitive tasks. And that's what drive me. And as a consultant, you have even more opportunity to solve problems because you have more customer. Each time they are different. Even if they work in the same sector, they have different problems. And that's what I like in my job. And that's why
I
I
can
took
imagine.
the chief troubleshooter officer, just to mention that, okay, I'm there to help to resolve problems.
And I can imagine that with cybersecurity there are lots of potential problems, if not existing ones. Yeah. Okay, great. Now let's speak a little bit about NIS2. So you're, I imagine, heavily involved in this new directive. So what do you see as biggest challenges for companies that must be compliant with NIS2?
But the first thing, Belgium, um, I will not say for the first time, but we are quite busy with NIS2 already for uh, a few years, because I did my first NIS2 gap analysis for a customer in October 2023, I think. And Belgium was one of the first country to put NIS2 in our local law. It was last year, beginning of last year, and I think that even if the most of the company in Belgium have heard about NIS2, the main challenge, and it's not specific to NIS2, it's more specific to any cybersecurity project. It's to convince the customer, and sometimes the management of the customer, that doing NIS2 will bring value to the business. And it's not just a legal project. It's not just to be compliant. And often the CISO or IT people understand that, but not always the business, because they only see the budget needed. And so the main challenge is to explain that, okay, you don't need NIS2, at least it's what I think, you don't need NIS2 to be compliant and avoid to pay fines. That's the wrong approach to NIS2. You do NIS2 because you want to guarantee that you can still deliver your service or your product to your customer, that you protect their data. And at the end, if you do that, and if you promote that, it will bring value for your company, but it's also a good marketing message that you will give to your customer. If you say, okay, I'm secure, I secure your data, I will protect you also. That's a business value. It's not just to be compliant with a directive, and that's true for other cybersecurity regulation. It's true for the GDPR, even for GDPR. A lot of business say, okay, it doesn't bring value. You see at the end that if you can guarantee that you protect sensible data from your employee, from your customer, that can bring value. And but I think for these two, that's really the basis. And sometimes I have some funny discussion with legal people because they don't always approach NIS2, and it was the case also for GDPR, the same way, because for them, they take the directive and they check box. And if all the boxes are checked, they are fine. They are not trying to decrease the risk. They are not trying to protect the data. They just want to avoid to have to pay penalties if an incident happens. So the challenge is really to explain that and to show what it will bring to your customer. You need to have a pragmatic approach. The goal is not to be perfect, and that's not what NIS2 is asking, by the way, and it's not what the CCB, so the Center for Cybersecurity in Belgium, is asking for NIS2. They want a pragmatic approach to manage the risk. And if you talk business with business people, they will understand. If you talk IT or cybersecurity to the business, then they will have a problem, because they will not understand why you want to implement a privilege access management, a SOC, or whatever technical solution you can find. They don't care. What they want to see is what are the business value it will bring to their company.
And how do you actually achieve? I mean, the things that you're saying now make sense. I mean, to provide this business value through cybersecurity. But I mean, how do you overcome this resistance from the senior management, and how do you actually, make them understand this connection between business and cybersecurity?
But first, the funny thing is that more and more today we are contacted by the management of company, the CEO, or even the board, and not the CIO or the CISO. So there are many of them that understand the value. Sometimes it's not always for the good reason. Sometimes it's just because they want to give that message to their customer. So it's a kind of marketing campaign that they want to do, and it's not about cybersecurity. So it's not always the let's say the best approach. But more and more we our first contact within company, it's not IT or it's not the CISO. No, sometimes it's also the CISO that it's calling us to say, okay, I need help to convince my management that we need to do a NIS2 project. It's not always a dream situation. And there you need to talk with these people, you need to explain. And again, we don't take the directive and go point by point. We prepare a lot in advance. We very often we know what they will say to try to avoid to do the project. So we come prepared and we talk business. We don't talk technical stuff because that does not work. And it's you also need to find people that can help you in companies. In one hospital where we have done a gap analysis, for example, the HR VP was very concerned by NIS2 because she saw that it could really create major issue if data from patient would be exfiltrated from the hospital, for example. And so she helped us. So you need to try to find your ally in the company. And sometimes there are people that are more concerned than others. But very often now we go, the first presentation is to the EXCO, to the management committee, or even to the board. Because very often the CIO or the CISO, they are convinced that they need to do something, but they need help to pass the message. And it's sometimes easier when it's somebody external that come to pass this message. And there is no magic. It's communication, and try to find what's the value that it will bring to them. There are always costs, and sometimes it's a lot of cost because we can still see that many companies are far behind in terms of cybersecurity. But NIS2 also help us to pass the message because at the end it's also their responsibility. And in NIS2, the governance and the management responsibility is very, very important. It's not an IT project. I always repeat when I do a presentation, NIS2, it's not an IT project, it's a business project.
Yeah, I mean, NIS2 is quite clear that all the major decisions and the responsibilities for cybersecurity is upon the senior management, not IT or someone lower in the organization. And when you do this kind of cybersecurity projects, do you analyze also the business side of the company in order to help them, let's say, align this business with the cybersecurity? So do you also do this kind of business analysis also as well?
But it's always the first step. We always ask to first do interview with the business people. Why? Because we need to do a risk analysis. And we need to start from the business risk. If you start asking IT what are the risks, they will come with very technical risks that they think are very important for the company, but very often they are not the most important risks. So what we do, we do interview and we don't talk about cybersecurity. We don't talk about NIS2. We just ask them, okay, what are the pain points? What are the fear events. What are the business risks that could significantly impact your company? And it could be anything, not related to IT, not related to cybersecurity. And when we have done that, then we can link this business risk to cybersecurity risk, IT risk, operational risk. And also by doing that and by talking with the business manager, not only we understand their problem, so it's easier for us after that to tune the message about NIS2. But the second thing is that very often they are very happy to discuss and to raise their concern. And to have somebody that understand their risk and can pass the message after that to their colleagues from the management committee or from the board. So we always start from there. Also, we are working a lot in the manufacturing industry. And then OT, it's a very big part of NIS2. And unfortunately, in many companies, IT and OT are still completely separated. Even in some company, we can see convergence between IT and OT because at the end, the technology are moving more and more in the same direction, and the OT devices are most of the time connected to the same network. So the IT and the OT people need to talk. But still, the management sometimes is different. OT is very often less centralized. You can see different technology used in different plants. And so it's very important to talk also with the operational people, with the plant manager, with the people that are really responsible of the operation. And the head of operation, it's a key person when we do the interview for NIS2 because we also need to cover the OT part. So we always try to start with the business. It's not always possible, but it's very important for us.
And when you make your deliverables as a consultant, do you always, in your deliverables, do you also make this connection on how cybersecurity will improve the business? Or, I mean,
we don't redefine the strategy, the business strategy of the company, but we try and, especially with ISO 27001, very often that can be used when you have the certificate, even if the scope is not the full company, but in one area. We explain that they can use also with their customer to explain that they are better than their competitor because they invest in cybersecurity to protect the service, the product, the data. So we also, the other thing that we are always doing when we do a gap analysis for cybersecurity, we always look also at IT processes. We use COBIT for that. And we always try to, even if it's not as detailed as the cybersecurity part, we always try to make recommendations to improve the way IT support the business. Because we have talked to the business people and very often they express some concern or frustration about IT. And then we talk with IT that very often express concern and frustration with the business. So we have the two sides of the view, and that's also our role, even if it's not just about cybersecurity, to try to propose recommendation to improve the way the business and IT work together, not just to protect the assets, but also to be more efficient. And that's also my background because I've been CIO in the past. When I was an employee, I worked as IT during more than 20 years, even if I was also working in cybersecurity, but I was more IT than cybersecurity when I was employee. And when I moved to consultant, I moved more to cybersecurity than IT. But I still have I like to be able also to review the way IT is working.
Okay. This sounds like a very important, let's say, experience that you have. So being really on this CIO side, right? And how much do you think this is important for any, let's say, any cybersecurity consultants? Is it really, let's say, necessary to have this IT background or IT experience within companies to be a good cybersecurity consultant?
But first, what do you mean by a cybersecurity consultant? It's just if you say a doctor, or there are so many specialties now. You can be a cybersecurity consultant but only focus on very technical subject. You can be the privilege access management consultant, or the SOC analyst consultant, or so you have different type of consultant in cybersecurity. I'm working more on the GRC side. So, for example, when we need consultant to look at how the firewall are set up, review the rules, or how Office 365 is configured, I'm not doing that. I don't have that expertise anymore. I'm not technical anymore. So we use some consultant that can do that. If you are very technical, you don't really need to be very familiar with the business. It's always better, but that's not so important. Though if you work more on a GRC side, if you need to do some risk analysis, if you need to interview the business people, then it's better to have that expertise, to have worked with the business. And when I was working in IT, I was also working a lot with the business people. So I learned also how to interact with them and how to speak their language. But there are different type of consultants, and so there is no profile that fit with all the type of consultant, I think.
Oh, okay. Let's go back a little bit to NIS2. So, besides this, let's say finding it hard to align business with cybersecurity, are these companies that need to be compliant with NIS2? Do they usually find the most difficult, for example, to align their technology with the regulations, or maybe their internal processes, or let's say policies, procedures, or maybe, I don't know, human resources? So which kind of areas do they find the most difficulties with?
I don't think it's the technical part, because the technical part, okay, there are many solutions on the market. It's not new, even if there are some change. Very often, access management, incident response, it could be difficult to put in place the right solution. But I think it's more on the processes, about the documentation. There are many companies that have implemented a lot of technical solutions, but nothing is documented. They have no process in place. And with NIS2 or ISO 27001, it's always the same problem. You can have everything in place, but if you cannot show that you have some policy, procedure, and evidence that it's done, it's just like, at least for the certification, it will be very, very difficult. But also, it's also more difficult to explain the value of that, because people say, yeah, well, we are working like that for the last 20 years. We didn't have documentation. It's still working. So that's most of the time, that's the area, processes and documentation, that are the most difficult to change. And also because it's linked to other departments. When you do NIS2 or ISO 27001 in manufacturing company, very often they have ISO 9001 certification. So you could say, okay, good, we will just reuse what the QMS, and it will be easy. But then you find that, yes, in some business area, they have documented everything, but IT was not involved, because it was not seen as important as part of the real business. And then when you want to put everything together, it's not always easier.
Yeah, yeah.
And for example,
So,
I had the case with one customer just about risk management. They had different approach, and they were so high level in their risk analysis than we had to go in another direction for cybersecurity because it was too high level, and we need to go to the operational level to define what are the measure and control that we had to put in place. So,
mhm,
but the technical part, I don't say it's easy, but I think it's easier than the process and the documentation.
yeah. So, what do you think is then the biggest, let's say, where can consultants make the biggest impact for NIS2 companies? Okay, besides this alignment with the business. So, is this really on the process side or something else beyond this?
Well, I would say the first thing is there is a lack of resource, lack of people. So the first thing very often it's that the consultant is seen as a resource that it's the only one that can contribute because there is nobody else. So and I'm sure it's like that in many countries, but in Belgium it's quite tough to find the right people. And the
Mm-hmm.
internal people, they don't have that expertise in cybersecurity for the technical part or for the more GRC part. So very often the consultant is seen as the one that will unlock the situation. Um, so sorry, I don't remember what was the first part of your question.
But the question is really, where can a consultant actually add the most value? Is this really helping them with the processes, or as you were saying, simply being an extra pair of hands? Or is there anything else that consultants can really add value for these two companies?
Well, I think it's really the expertise today that I see in Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
We Our consultants know not only the different framework that we use, but they have done similar projects even before NIS2.
Uh-huh.
They have done ISO 27001 project, and they can save a lot of time because when you need to write a policy, you need to come with an approach, a methodology with
Mm-hmm.
within the company in order to write the documentation as fast as possible. But then the change management part is very important, and that's I think also what the consultant will bring. It's the change management part
Mm-hmm.
because when you have done that a few times, and sometimes it's very difficult to be able to change the way people are working and to be able to involve everybody. Uh, so for me, a GRC consultant needs also to be a good change manager, a good communicator, and
Uh-huh.
that you do not have always in company, especially when people say, yeah, this too, it's an IT project. When you go in the IT department, you don't always have the people who can communicate and do change management, define process, and so yeah, I think that's why
Mm-hmm.
consultant can really help there, and not all
Mm-hmm.
the cyber security expert like to do that. Very often I meet people that say, yeah, well, GRC and NIS2 project or ISO 27001 project, I don't like that. I want to have my hand in, doing the real stuff. I'm more uh, yeah, a security analyst. Uh, you still have a lot of geek that
Yeah.
are doing cybersecurity, which is good because you need these people. Huh? You need to have people who really understand the technology, but that's not what we are doing. We are more trying to to manage the project, the change management, and improve the way the company are working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. These are the areas where consultants can certainly add a lot of value for clients. Now, since NIS2 is a directive, each EU country have to publish their own laws and regulations based on NIS2. And from what I've seen, let's say Belgium has a different approach to, I don't know, Croatia or Italy or, I don't know, Latvia, Lithuania, all the other countries that already published. So what is your really, let's say, suggestion here? If a company operates in several EU countries, how do they actually align their NIS2 projects? I can't say one project because they probably are different from one country to another. So what is really the way to handle this kind of complex, I would say, project with several laws and regulations to be compliant with?
But first, it's a nightmare because because there are still a lot of countries that have not even implemented the local law, so you don't even know what you are supposed to do. And when you do project for a multinational company, you cannot wait. You need to take some decision. There are some of our customers, they say, okay, we don't care. We use an internal framework, and very often based on standard, international standard. So we will use that, and we will adapt if needed. For example, NIST CSF, which is probably a very good idea, because at least in Belgium, if you look at the framework developed by the CCB, it's really based on NIST CSF with a little bit of ISO 27001 and a few other frameworks. In Belgium, there are other companies that say, okay, we will do ISO 27001 because it's a way to do it in Belgium. You have the choice between ISO 27001 or Siphon, Cybersecurity Fundamentals. And we can even do it not for the full scope first. We start in 2025 with part of the company. Then we expand. And as it's a European standard, we will continue to do that in other countries. And we will see. But it's not easy. And you need to make a choice. You cannot wait. I think if you take a standard like ISO 27001, NIST TSF, anyway, you can map later, and if something is missing, you will add it. Anyway, you need to start with doing a risk analysis, whatever framework you use. So, but it will be nice when every country will have decided, and I hope that some country will not go in different direction. I don't know why it's a directive, by the way, because
it would
it was not
have
the
been
case
easier
for
if it was
why for NIS2 they decide to do a directive. I don't know. It would have been easier for everybody, I think, to have a regulation, same everywhere. And because today there are a lot of uncertainty for large multinational, and but they cannot wait because they are very often already late.
So, I mean, this whole thing seems like a very good opportunity for consultants, right? Consultants that would focus on NIS2. And in your opinion, is this something that is going to be a good business opportunity only for, let's say, 1 or 2 years for consultants, or is this opportunity going to last 5, maybe 10 years for this particular directive?
But I don't know for NIS2, I suppose that it will have an end, but NIS2 is just the first of many other directives or regulation. We have already customers that are working on CRA, Cyber Resilience Act. After that, you have AI Act, where you also need to look at the protection of your data. There are many regulations, and I think when I see the situation for smaller company today in Belgium, I think they are work for the next 50 years. I think I will be retired a long time before the demand will decrease, because I mainly work with large company, and medium size, and fintech. And all these companies, even the small fintech, they are regulated by the national bank, so they need to invest in cybersecurity, and they need to comply with other regulation like DORA, for example, in the financial industry. Um, but the other company, they have a big challenge. And with NIS2, they start to feel it, because NIS2, you need to guarantee the security of the supply chain. And so small company or company that are not directly in the scope of NIS2, that have not invested in cybersecurity, will be very, very, very much impacted. And I know some company that lost already some contracts because they could not guarantee that they took cybersecurity seriously. And so their customers that are in the scope of NIS2 say, sorry, but I cannot take the risk. So I will only work with supplier that can show that they've put in place a cybersecurity project. And so it's not just NIS2 for the company that are directly in the scope of NIS2, but it's I think the impact is even bigger for the other company that have customers that are in the scope of NIS2, because this company, until very recently, they did not invest often in cybersecurity, and so there are a lot of work, I think, for the coming years.
Yeah, lots of work for consultants. And what do you think? How will this consulting, let's say, role or business evolve over the next, let's say, 10 or 20 years? Okay, we discussed the Cyber Resilience Act, the AI Act. Okay, but these are frameworks that consultants need to, let's say, consult upon. But how will their actual job change because of, let's say, globalization, or because of AI itself? What do you think? How will it look like in 10 or 15 years to be a consultant?
I don't know, because things are moving so quickly, and you mentioned AI. It's true that we are using more and more AI just to work quicker. AI is used also more and more in tools for cybersecurity and by hackers also. So if you look, when I started to work a long time ago, in 1990, I was already doing security. We were not calling that cybersecurity at that time. And the focus was more on DRP and BCP at that time. It was to ensure that in case of big problem, we can resume the situation. That was more than 30 years ago. If you look today, there are still many companies that have exactly the same issue. So I think if you have asked me 30 years ago what I would thought about consultant in 2025, I would not imagine at that time internet, AI, and things like that. But still, some major problems are still there. So I don't know in 30 years if we will still have the same problem. Perhaps they will have changed. We see a lot more people moving to the cloud and to have other solution. Even if I see also some customers that do the opposite, move from the cloud to on-premise for security reasons. I think there are things that in 30 years you will still have risk. You will still need people that can analyze the risk and make the link between the technical part of the company and more the business side. For the rest, it's difficult to imagine what will be the world in 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely be the pain or the needs for let's say cybersecurity and for let's say some kind of services. But if AI takes a part of it, I mean, some simpler things like writing documents maybe, or these kind of things. What is then left for consultants? I mean, what is this specific thing that consultants or people will be able to do, but not machines?
But I think it's true that already today AI helps us to be quicker to write reports, and or collect data. So that will speed up in the future. But I think the change management part and the communication and the interview with the people, uh, we can see. You could say, okay, today you can send a questionnaire to people and then uh, collect all the questionnaire and ask AI to analyze that. But you will
Mm-hmm.
not get the same result than if you speak with the people. And the change management part, if you want to convince people that what you are doing is the right thing to do, I'm not convinced that today. I don't know in 30 years, but today AI will help us just to be better and quicker. And
Mm-hmm.
in some area, yeah, you will need less people for sure. But it just, I still see it as a tool that helped me to improve the way I'm working, and I'm using testing. I'm passionate about AI for a long time. Even not only generative AI, but I worked in the past when I was in IT on predictive analytics and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of project. So I was always interested by AI and see how AI could help cybersecurity. And it will continue and it will solve problems. It will also create other problems because the hacker will also be able to use
Yeah.
this technology. Perhaps we will need less people in the future because everything will be better. But I think it's not tomorrow that we will disappear and be replaced by AI.
Yeah, but as you were saying, probably AI will not be able to change things in the companies. It will be humans, I mean, consultants that will be instrumental here, important here actually to convince, senior management to change things. And this is probably an area where consultants will keep their edge over AI. Yeah. Okay, so if we can speak a little bit about your consultancy. So I noticed that you all offer also this CISO as a service. Can you speak a little bit about this? How does this work?
Well, as I mentioned, when I decided to become consultant and create my first company, my objective was to bring the knowledge that I learned in very big multinational company and apply that in smaller company. It didn't work like that at the beginning because I continued to work with large company. But I still had that in mind. And, and still today, as I mentioned, when you look at small company, very often their situation is worse than a larger company in terms of cybersecurity. So no, today we are only 5 in the company, so I cannot support all the SME of Belgium with 5 people.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, what could we do to help this company? They cannot afford a full-time CISO. It's too expensive for them. They don't need a full-time CISO most of the time.
Hmm.
Um, and if they have a CISO coming 1 day per week, for example, in their company, what will happen if the day after they have an incident? You cannot say, oh, you need to wait next week when the CISO will come back. So to have part-time CISO that are just be present 1 day or a few days per month in a company, that does not help really. And so that's why I say, okay, let's offer a service. So you have somebody who will come to the company time to time, once a week, a few days per month. But on top of that, we will provide a service. So when he's not there, if there is a problem,
Hmm.
the customer can still call the team to get some support. And then we will also package a few things like, for example, policy, best practice, just to help them to apply that quicker. And
Hmm.
that's what we are trying now. It's to offer a CISO that it's available as a service. And we do that for other things like cybersecurity awareness as a service. So we can
Hmm.
train the company. They don't have the internal resource to do it. So we define there. annual training plan for cybersecurity. We run the campaign. We run the phishing exercise as a service. Large company, they will have some people in HR or in IT who will manage that. Smaller company, they don't have the resource. They don't have the time to spend to do that. That costs them a lot of money if they need to train people to work only on this task a few days per month. So we try to offer as a service different aspect of cybersecurity, risk management, awareness, and CISO as a service. No, CISO as a service can also cover everything if the customer want the full package, but we can also just deliver a part of it.
This sounds very interesting. And from, let's say, again, from a consultancy business point of view, is it better to have these kind of compliance projects, which are one-off, like, NIS2 compliance or, I don't know, 27001 compliance? Or is it better to have these kind of CISO as a service or security awareness as a service, which are more continuous, like?
But very often our consultants work on both. For example, they work 3 days or 4 days on a big project, and then 1 day per week they are working as CISO as a service. No, even in bigger company, very often we offer CISO as a service during the project because they don't have CISO. And sometimes it's very strange because they have some very large company or hospital or I will not say bank or insurance company because most of them have as a CISO, but sometimes even large company in manufacturing, they don't have a CISO, and they have also some budget constraint. And so we also offer sometimes CISO as a service part of the NIS2 project. And so the project manager of the NIS2 project is playing the CISO role. So when he's there and he's working, if he's working 3-4 days per week, but he's officially the CISO. And the day where he's not there, the customer can call the rest of the consultant if there is an incident. So we don't have people that are specialized in CISO as a service and people that only working on project. It's also for the consultant. They like to have different type of activities and not always the same thing, not always the same challenge. And also very often they like to work for different customer in the same time. So they could work on a project a few days per week and the rest CISO as a service. So a mix of the two things is very attractive for some of the consultants.
Okay, sounds great. And are you afraid actually of the competition? I mean, other consultants. So, are you afraid of actually staying or getting? I mean, they will put you out of the business because they, simply get more your customers. So, how do you actually compete with other consultants, and what makes you actually competitive there?
But we are a small company. They are bigger company than us in Belgium. You have the company that are in the, let's say, 100, 300, 400 number of employees specialized in cybersecurity. Then you have the large IT service company that do a little bit of everything, and then you have the big four that are also present in cybersecurity. And we have competition, that for sure, but we have one big advantage. It's that we are small, and so it means that we are flexible and we are cheaper. Because we don't have large team, we don't have salespeople in my company. Because perhaps one day we will need somebody doing the selling part, but today people or customers are talking to each other, and very often there are companies that call us and say we want to work with you, and then we ask, okay, how do you know us? And they say, but because I spoke with other company. And sometimes it's very large company. I remember a few years ago, a very big company called us and say, we want to work with you. And I thought it was somebody making a joke because I say, yeah, but why us? because they heard that we are very flexible, we are pragmatic, we don't come with a very complex solution. And so today, yes, we have competition. Sometimes we lose contract for sure. But for the moment, we have enough work, and we are trying to grow by recruiting additional people, which is the biggest challenge. It's more difficult to find good consultants
Yeah.
than to find customer today, due to NIS2, due to DORA, due to CRA, and that kind of things. So for the moment, it's yes, there are competition, but it happened in the past that a competitor called me and say, okay, I have a customer, I want to please him, I cannot do the mission, could you do it? Uh, no, I don't say that it's happened often, but it happened to us a few years ago. Just
Yeah.
because at that time he had too much work, and he preferred to make a good recommendation to his customer than to say, no, we cannot help you. So I think the size, I think when you become bigger, probably it's also more complex, because you need to start to hire sales guys, HR, and all the supporting function. And but we are too small to for that. So for the moment, yes, there are competition, but we are not really suffering from that.
Great, and obviously you have a very good word of mouth marketing, which promotes you. Actually, this is great. Okay, great. So let's try to wrap up the interview today. So, what would you say are kind of, let's say, top things that consultants, cybersecurity consultants in this governance area? So, what would you recommend as, let's say, the most important things that such consultants have to bear in mind?
But first, you need to like the work of consultant, because not everybody is ready to be a consultant. So you don't become a consultant because you have heard that it's a wonderful job and things like that. You really need to like that, because it's true that there are a lot of challenge, that all the customers are not always easy. And then also in cybersecurity, many consultants are independent, and you need to like that kind of status. No, since I become independent, I didn't have one day without job. Um, Probably due to cybersecurity. There are IT consultants that have more challenge, because okay, if you work in a very niche, in a small niche, sometimes it's difficult to find on the mission. Just not the case for me. So first, you need to like the the job. The second thing, you need to like uh, to learn every day. So you need to like to follow some
Mm-hmm.
training, certification, and things like that, because things are moving so quickly. And if you don't learn new things in a few years, you will have to do something else. So
Yeah.
that never stop. Um, and then you need to interact with people. It's mainly a people to people job. We At
Mm-hmm.
least in GRC, you are not spending hours to configure firewalls or setting up server or things like that. You are mainly working with people, talking with people, challenge them, and so if you like to do that, I think there are plenty of opportunity today. Even
Mm-hmm.
if you are junior, you don't need to have 20 years of expertise. You will learn with more senior people. Um, and again, one thing that I personally do not want to do with my company is to do body shopping, because body shopping is not consultancy. Body shopping
Mm-hmm.
is find a resource and push it in a company. And very often we have customers that ask, "Oh, do you have a cybersecurity consultant that can come to work for us?" And I say yes, but I will not propose him to you, because then you manage it, and it's just a freelance working for you, and that's not a consultant. A consultant need to exchange with other peers. You need to work for different customer, and we always take the responsibility of the deliverables. That's the work of a consultant. Need to take the responsibility of what he deliver, and that's also, there are people that prefer to say, okay, I have my job though in my company, even if as an independent, and I know that during 5 years I will do the same thing every day, and I have a secure job, and that's fine. We need people that like to work in the operation, for example, to run infrastructure. But okay, that's not that's another type of job, and there are people who prefer that. There are people that prefer to work as a consultant.
Okay, great. So again, thank you for these insights, Philippe. It was very it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I believe that there is lots of information and I would say new things that consultants will be able to learn from you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Philippe. And thank you everyone for listening or watching this podcast, and see you again in 2 weeks' time in new episode of Secure and Simple podcast. Thanks for making it this far in today's episode of Secure and Simple podcast. Here's some useful info for consultants and other professionals who do cybersecurity governance and compliance for a living. On Advisera website, you can check out various tools that can help your business. For example, Conformio software enables you to streamline and scale ISO 27001 implementation and maintenance for your clients. White label documentation toolkits for NIS2, DORA, ISO 27001 and other ISO standards enable you to create all the required documents for your clients. Accredited lead auditor and lead implementer courses for various standards and frameworks enable you to show your expertise to potential clients. And a learning management system called Company Training Academy with numerous videos for NIS2, DORA, ISO 27001 and other frameworks enable you to organize training and awareness programs for your clients' workforce. Check out the links in the description below for more information. If you like this podcast, please give it a thumbs up. It helps us with better ranking, and I would also appreciate if you share it with your colleagues. That's it for today. Stay safe.